Welcome to Equal Inspired, the inclusive podcast, brought to you by Equal IT.
Elaine Montilla joins us, who is the founder of 5X Minority, which is a company on a mission to demonstrate how businesses can be powerful platforms for social change by elevating the voices of women and underestimated groups in tech. She is also the Chief Technology Officer for US Score Assessments at Pearson's, driving digital innovation and product development strategies for diverse clients, a TEDx speaker, and former Forbes Technology Council member. Originally from Dominican Republic, Elaine has over 20 years of experience in higher education IT leadership. She's known for her operational excellence, staff development, and inclusive leadership. And as an advocate for diversity, she promotes equal opportunities in STEM and defies stereotypes as a Latina professional in tech. Elaine's accolades include being named in the top 100 outstanding LGBTQ plus executive role models by Yahoo Finance in 2021, one of the top 100 women in tech by Technology Magazine in 2023, being among the top 100 Latinas of 2024 by Latino Leaders Magazine, and awarded the HITEC 100 Hispanic Technology Leaders for 2024.
So happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. So grateful for your time. It's been a long time coming as well, but we got there in the end. And, you know, these things are worth the wait. So I'm very excited.
We made it, Ellie.
We made it. And I'd love to start in true Equal Inspired style by knowing who or what is inspiring you at the moment.
Anytime I think about who inspires me in general, I think about my mother. But when you ask who is inspiring me now, I'm going to switch to my nephew. One of my nephews is graduating high school and going to college. And I've watched him grow and I feel so proud of him. He gives me hope for the next generation that is coming, and knowing how well he's managing all these changes with social media. He's hardly in any social media platform, which I think is amazing. And he's very thoughtful. His name is Sebastian. And he really inspires me every time I watch him and every time he talks to me about going to college and how excited he is about studying computers, probably following Titi. They call me Titi, so probably following my footsteps.
Oh, that's so amazing that you draw that inspiration from your family as well. And I want to start at the beginning, because you've had such a remarkable journey from the Dominican Republic to becoming a trailblazing Chief Technology Officer in the US. Could you share with our audience, I guess, some of the key moments or experiences that really helped to shape your career path? And I want to say, especially in the context of being a minority woman in the tech industry.
Such an interesting question. And, you know, if I think back to that time, probably there are three moments that really shaped me. The first one is just moving to a new country at the age of 17 and not speaking English and having to learn a new language, and not only a new language, but a new culture and a new identity, Ellie, because growing up to the age of 17, my name was Elaine. And I feel that when I moved to this country gave me a new identity. I did not know that my name in English was pronounced in a different way. And so by now I'm really used to hearing Elaine. But that was not my identity when I moved here. I think the second change for me came when I delivered my TEDx talk. I can tell you that I did not anticipate all the emails and messages that I was going to get from young girls saying, wow, I can see myself in you. I'm so happy to know that I'm not the only one going through this. I spent time crying, listening to messages that were coming in, and that really fueled my mission to build in 5X Minority. And I think the third one would be building 5X Minority and knowing and understanding that even if I'm only one person, my voice matters, and that I can make a difference and people are watching. I don't know if you've been through this, Ellie, but sometimes we do all this work and you wonder if anyone is paying attention. And then you get an email that confirms that everything you're doing is helping other people, especially women and members of the LGBTQ plus community, which I'm a member of. And so I feel that all of that really changed my career trajectory, and that's where I'm in the place I am today.
That is incredibly inspiring. There's so many layers here that have contributed to the person that you are today. And I want to go back to that 17-year-old self when you was coming into a new location. Like you say, you had to learn a new language. How did you begin to navigate that and actually settle into that? Because it's a big change, and with change comes fear, and it can be quite scary and uncomfortable.
It was very scary. It was extremely uncomfortable. I remember crying for days because I wanted to go back home. You know, when you leave right after high school, you have already established friendships. It was cold and I never saw snow in my life. I was like, what is this? What's happening here? It was difficult. I think that one of the things that helped me, one is that I had my mom here. I have a lot of friends who moved to the US with no family around them. I had my mom, I had my sister, aunts, and that really helped a lot. And then the two is that when I went to get my associate degree, I went into a community college that was mixed with a lot of Latinos. And I remember going into classrooms and hearing Spanish in the hallways helped me feel more comfortable because I felt that I was surrounded by people who sounded like me. I think that if I didn't have that in my first years here in the US, it would have been a lot more difficult than it was. I struggle a lot with my accent, and maybe we'll talk more about that later, but I really wanted my accent to go away in a day. That was not possible. I had this huge need to fit in. I had this huge need to belong, and I felt like I was different. You know, my hair looked different, my voice sounded different, my English was different, and I struggled a lot. I spent a lot of time feeling ashamed about my accent and wanting it to be perfect. And it took years for me to understand that is actually a superpower to have an accent. It took years for me to understand that being different is actually good for me. But the first years, I could tell you, it was tough. It was hard. I think I'm lucky because I love languages. And so I learned English pretty fast. But definitely having an accent and looking different than everyone else was a struggle.
I can only imagine how difficult that was for you. And you say that it took you good amount of time to actually get to a place where you are enough, you are incredible, and you celebrate yourself. What would you say contributed to getting to that point?
I could think of two things. I would say probably the first one was my mentors. I remember my mentor, especially one of them, and I dedicated my TEDx talk to him because my talk is on the value of mentorship. He helped me see in myself things that I couldn't see. He would look at me and say, Elaine, you're ready for the next thing. And I'd be like, imposter syndrome comes in every once in a while. I'd be like, you're crazy. I'm not ready to be a manager. Yeah, I was a supervisor at the time. And so knowing that someone who did not really know me, is not a member of my family or a close friend, could have so much belief in my skills and my abilities, that really helped me change the way I saw myself. And I think the second one I attribute to my spiritual journey. I started reading a lot of spiritual books and I started to meditate and journal. I journal every day. I meditate every day. And I feel that learning how to quiet my mind, learning that I'm not my thoughts, learning how to be present and practice mindfulness really helped me see myself in a new way. I also had to work on the people-pleasing part. That was getting in the way, and I had to learn that people would have an idea of me, and I had no control over that at all. Regardless of what I said, there is no way that I could please everyone. There is no way that I could make everybody happy. And that was tough for me because I'm someone who enjoys the company of others, and I always want everybody to be okay. And I just had to learn that, everybody has their own minds and their own thoughts and their own upbringing, and I have nothing to do with that. And so I think those things really helped me in that process.
And on that idea of mindfulness, you said that you started reading as well. Were there any standout books for you that were like a game changer, that really gave you that eye-opening realization, because mindfulness is such an important thing at the moment that I think some of us don't do enough of. We neglect that part of us for our career.
I have so many books, Ellie. I'm trying to think which one to give you. Let me think of a few. Books that changed my life. One is The Seed of the Soul by Gary Zukav. The second one is The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. I really love that book, especially the agreement of being impeccable with your word, which I don't think we talk about enough, and how words carry energy. And maybe the last one would be A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle. I have so many. I read so many books. I'm a nerd at heart, and I'm always listening to a podcast or reading a book. And then on the business side, the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And I would say Good to Great. Good to Great is a good leadership book that is extremely old, but timeless.
I highly encourage everybody to check those out. You're like the modern day Matilda, with your love for books.
Oh my God, I've never heard that before. I love it.
Maybe you should add that in your LinkedIn bio, the modern day Matilda.
I am going to steal it right now.
There's some great resources there. And again, on that idea of mindfulness and the things that we can do to put ourselves first, navigating life, career, pressures externally can be so tough. And through your own journey, what have been some things that have helped you to be more present, to balance those work, life, to focus on mindfulness?
I think journaling is a big one. I think sometimes we forget about the power of our handwriting, and not on a computer. I never do it on a phone. I have a notepad everywhere you can sit down in this house. There is a notepad next to it. I really love going to sleep with a clear mind. And so before I go to sleep, I want to empty everything that's here and just put it aside. I also like to ask myself questions, because one of the things that I learned is that not everything that you think is true or real. And it took me years, Ellie, to realize that and to understand that just because a thought comes to my head, it doesn't mean that it's real and it's happening and that I need to follow it. So in my mindfulness practice, I learned to observe my thoughts like clouds. There are clouds that are passing by, and you can see the cloud, and you're not connected to the cloud, and the cloud is not here to tell you what to do, and you let it pass and you let it go. And sometimes, especially when I'm stressing, I have learned to observe my thoughts and sometimes question my thoughts, especially with my upbringing in the Dominican Republic and being a member of the LGBTQ plus community. I had a lot of conditioned thinking. I had a lot of things that society told me, television, commercials, church, people, family. And I had to learn to question all my thoughts and ask myself, do I really believe that? Is that true? And what proof do I have of it? So right now, I have a sign on my door that says, "Don't believe everything you think." And I try to remind myself, and it's a practice. I mean, I'm far from perfect. I have my days where I'm not able to do it, but that's why meditation helps a lot, because it helps me to slow down and respond to what happens around me instead of reacting. I think we're so used to reacting, and that's all connected to the thought that comes to your head. I hope I'm not going too deep here.
No, I love it.
Yeah, and so I had to learn to just breathe and relax and create space for the feelings to be there without attaching myself to them. It takes a while, and it's ongoing. I don't think it ever ends, and that's why for me meditation is so important, because it helps me quiet my mind a little bit.
With the mindfulness and the practicing that you're doing, you're really enriching yourself. How would you say you then utilize that to support your team to focus on their own mental well-being and to create more of a healthy culture around speaking openly about these things?
I can tell you that I am the same person everywhere I go. And so when you see me at work, my teams know that there is only one version of Elaine. And it's funny you mentioned that, because I recently had an employee who sent me a message because he was feeling stressful, and we were talking about ways to make things better. And the way I approach all of this is knowing that we need to remove all of these titles that we have for people. For me, my teams are everything. They're the reason I'm there. I always tell them that they think they work for me, but I work for them. It's the other way around. And it starts with being yourself, not being afraid to be vulnerable. And I think that they've seen that in me, creating spaces where they can feel comfortable using their voice. I always go into meetings knowing that everybody's voice matters. I create space for people to speak. I intentionally go around the room to make sure that everybody has a chance to say what they need to say. And I created a Teams channel where we can share a lot of information. I share mental health information. I send an email every month, updates from the CTO. And at the bottom, I either share a tech talk that I love or mental health resources. And so I'm always mindful about being intentional. I think the word is intentional. And knowing that there is space for them to meet with me. Something that I did when I was hired my first year, I had virtual Friday hours for an hour. And anyone can come in and talk to me, because I want to make sure that they don't see me as someone who is like 10 levels above them. You know, the CTO title can intimidate a lot of people. And I want to make sure that they feel that they can come to me at any time. And so people would come in on Fridays and ask questions or share how they feel. And I think knowing that I am listening, but I'm also following up on the things that I said that I would do, creates the space where they can feel comfortable telling me other things. And so I have one-on-one conversations with a lot of them now after my first year. And I feel that by me being vulnerable is showing that I'm not perfect. I'm extremely imperfect, and that I don't have all the answers. And sometimes I would call them for the answers. And sharing a lot of resources online. We have celebrations. We celebrate diversity. We celebrate whenever there is something going on in the world. I want to make sure that everyone feels included. I'm not perfect. I may forget a day of celebration, and I tell it, listen, come in the Teams channel and say something if I forget. But I think it all goes back to being vulnerable. I think as leaders, we are so afraid of being vulnerable because growing up, a lot of people saw it as a negative, something that you did not want to show. You want to make sure that everybody sees you as a very strong person. And we are all humans. We are all imperfect humans. And I feel that because they see that in me, they know that there would be no judgment the other way around.
You know, that's so beautiful how you've worded that, seriously. And it really holds a lot of weight for me, because I speak with engineers, developers on a weekly basis around if they were to reflect on the moments they felt like they most belonged in a team. What were those actions? What were those behaviors that contributed to that feeling? Because, of course, it's an internal feeling. We can't tell people they belong, but pretty much everything you've just shared in terms of your ethos and what you do are examples that have been shared to me. And it's just beautiful how much you value that and how much you empower individuals in your team, because there is so much power in vulnerability. And I agree, for far too long, we've often thought that this is a weakness and we have to be this strong person all of the time, 100% of the time. But actually, is anybody that strong person 100% of the time?
The other thing that I see, Ellie, is that sometimes because we are afraid of saying the wrong thing, we sometimes end up saying nothing, which is worse than saying the wrong thing. And I'm extremely comfortable with anyone correcting me because I said the wrong thing, because that's the only way to grow, right? And so there is always something for me to grow. And whenever I go through an adversity, one of the questions that I ask myself is, what is this here to teach me? When you have an open mindset and you're always focusing on the learning that's connected to the journey, and you're curious, I think that it helps everyone around you, because I'm not so focused on me and how I want them to see me. And I think it's all that work with being a recovering people pleaser that helped me with that. But just knowing that I don't have all the answers, and it is okay if I make a mistake. Because I already told you that I'm not perfect. I don't have this facade in front of you where I want you to think that everything I do is carefully planned. Sometimes it's not. A lot of the times it is when it comes to work. And I think we just need to focus on that a little more. And it's going to take a new generation to change that.
I resonate a lot with what you're saying. Like, adversity, it's painful, it's uncomfortable, it can be so tough at times, but it's always going to teach us something, whether that is the next day, 3 months down the line, 6 months down the line. There's always lessons that we can take. And I speak about this a lot on episodes, but I believe it helps to shape who we are going to be. And our strength, our resilience, our grit, it comes from our adversities. So I really resonate a lot with what you're saying there. And celebrating diversity, you said events as well, is super important. Now, I know that you are a part of the LGBTQ plus community, and June, of course, is Pride. And what we often see is a lot of companies putting the flags as the logos, but only showing up in June. And Pride should be every month, right? I wondered if you had any advice or thoughts that you can share with companies on how to be better allies all year round for that LGBTQ plus community.
I think you said it already, Ellie. I feel that a lot of companies are waiting for June to demonstrate that they care about us. And this is something that we need to do every year. That's why I go back to all these titles that people put on us. And I have so many of them, it's exhausting. And so I love ERG groups, and I love knowing that we have support from groups that are helping us celebrate all year round. I feel that knowing that anyone could be themselves at all times is a way of celebrating them. Having your pronouns in your signature is a way of celebrating them. And treating people with respect. I feel that from my own experience, I can tell you that I spent so many years hiding who I was that it was exhausting. Because, and I think this is what companies need to know. I had two versions of Elaine. I had a version of myself outside of work, and then when I opened the door and I walked in, there was another version of me because I didn't know how people would react. And what it does to a company is that as an employee, I'm not able to be innovative. I'm not able to participate fully because I am hiding a part of myself. And so in the end, knowing that I can bring my full self to work helps the bottom line because I'm able to contribute. And I can see that in my own experience. I can also see how it's not always safe for people to do that. And so that's why today I make sure that I create the space where anyone can be themselves. I think we need to spend more time, I don't know if it's training or helping other people understand how to create safe spaces at work. I think that I'll probably start there. There is a lot of ignorance, and sometimes an hour training can help people see things that they couldn't see before. And whenever I can find a teaching opportunity and I have the energy for it, I will use it because sometimes it's really tiring. But, I think we need to just start seeing everyone as human beings, and regardless of any other title that society has created for us.
Just on the topic of safe space, if you was to create your own training manual, what would be like the top 3 things you'd include in that for creating that safe space?
I'm going to start with the act of listening with the intent to understand, not to be understood. I think we spend a lot of time having conversation with people and anticipating what they're going to say so that we can have the perfect answer afterwards. I learn a lot through public speaking, actually, to hear the question instead of worrying about what the answer would be. And mindfulness is connected to that in a way. So I think people know when you're not listening. And when I meet with an employee, I'm there 100%, and they know it and they feel it. The second one would be create a non-judgment space. I think that sometimes when we react instead of respond, Ellie, do you see how everything connects to the spiritual side?
The pennies dropped.
I know. I think when you understand that you're dealing with imperfect human beings, and when a mistake is made, you create the space where you can try to understand what happened and where people are coming from instead of yelling at people or blaming others without understanding what's going on. It helps people feel safe. And the third one is when you allow your vulnerability to show publicly. I have town hall meetings with all of my employees every quarter, and I make sure that they can see all of me. And I think that by doing that, they know that there isn't a different version that they get when we have a one-on-one. I think that sometimes you want to look perfect in front of a big audience, and then you allow the vulnerability to happen when it's one-on-one. And some people may have reasons to do that. But for me, I went through so much by hiding in the past that it is exhausting and I have no energy for it. And so coming in as myself into any room helps them see that I see them in me, and I hope that they see themselves in me also. I'll go with that.
That's so powerful. The fact that you have taken as well, like your own adversities and your own struggles, again, to help shape you to be the inspiring leader that you are today, who encourages those safe spaces. So everything is like a continual circle. We have the adversity, we have the lessons, we improve and we implement.
Yeah. And I had times in meetings where I would mispronounce a word. And what I would do is make fun of myself. And I would say, oh, God, English is my second language. How do you say this? It's just knowing that I don't want to be the smartest person in the room. I hire people to do that, and I rely on them. And I'm shining a light on them to do that. I don't need that. I don't need that light anymore. I think when you're getting started in your career and you're moving up, you have that need of having that light on you because it feels really good. And then you get to a point where you realize that you get more joy from the light shining on other people instead of yourself. And I feel like I'm in that space right now.
You're lifting everyone else up, and that can energize you. And I actually spoke to a CTO not too long ago. I met with her in London, and she shared something which is kind of similar to what you're saying. As a leader, we are the editor, not the author.
I love that. I'm gonna think about that some more. I like it.
And you said you learned a lot through public speaking. You still do, through the questions that get presented to you. Let's talk a little bit about your TED Talk. Could you take us back to that moment where you thought, I'm going to do a TED Talk. I want to do this, because I can imagine it's kind of scary,
Oh my God, you have no idea, especially because of my accent. I've had many dreams in my life, and I always write them down. And I have this list. I have this ongoing list. I also have a list of accomplishments, and I write them down. And I usually go back and read them to remind myself. And so I saw this ad online. I don't remember. I think it was probably on Instagram, and they were looking for people to submit a proposal and create a video and send it in. Now, this was not through anyone that I knew. I created a video, I submitted a proposal, and I said to myself, you know what? This is a dream of yours, and you can die tomorrow. You can die any day. Why not give it a try? And I submitted the proposal and I sent the video, and I didn't hear back. And I was like, oh, that's fine. Another opportunity will come up. And then I got an email back. And Ellie, I was freaking out. I was freaking out because it was real. You know how sometimes you do things and until they're real, you're like, it's fine. It's okay. when it became real that my talk was selected and that it was going through, I had a lot of moment of panic because I kept thinking about my accent. I kept thinking about being in front of all these people, and also sharing a lot of myself. And I speak about life growing up, my nephews. It was a moment where I said to myself, you know what? There are other women, Latinas, who cannot be here, and you have to do it for them. So the moment I removed the focus from me and I put it on other people, it became easier. But I can tell you, it's quite an experience. I don't think you ever forget. It was difficult. It was difficult to remember the whole talk. I think I can still say it today. But it was so rewarding, especially because my family was sitting in the front row and my mom was watching me. And I know she was proud. So that was the best part for me.
That's such an amazing moment and an incredible achievement. It is not easy to get up on stage, to do a talk, let alone a TED talk, and to remember all of that. You should be so proud of yourself for doing it. And when I first saw your talk, that's how we got into contact, I'm very sure, because I was so inspired by the heartfelt stories that you shared as well within that. But where did you draw that inspiration from initially for crafting the talk and the topic itself? What got you to that point?
Oh, yes. It was definitely my mentor. His name is Bob. We're still connected today, many years later. And he was the CIO at the university where I was working. And Bob was not only my mentor, but he was also a sponsor, which I don't think we talk about enough. And I mean, I can tell you that just knowing how much he trusted in me, how much he could see the things that I'm capable of before I can see the things that I'm capable of, I felt so grateful. I felt so much gratitude. And I wanted to share this talk so that other people can also learn from it, because I knew that opportunity is not really given to Latinas. A lot of Latinas don't have access to mentors. Forget about sponsors. We don't have access to mentors. And I wanted to shed a light on how it changed my life and how if we each can dedicate some time to helping another person, especially if they don't look or sound like you, we can make a huge difference. And ever since that day, there isn't a time where I'm not mentoring someone or multiple people at the same time, because I know that he's one of the reasons I am where I am today. Because I would not, I work really hard, so I am part of the reason. But knowing that I was capable of a lot more than I thought I was capable of, and somebody else can see that, and not only see it, but guide me and help me through that. Oh, I needed to do something to share more about that experience.
Shout out to Bob as well. Sounds like a really fantastic individual. And like you say, mentoring, sponsoring, so important to help shape the next generation of tech innovators. And you're doing a lot of mentoring yourself now. For anyone who's aspiring to be a mentor, maybe they're thinking it's not a space for them, the inner imposter creeping up on the shoulder. I can't be a mentor. I don't know enough. What advice can you give to them? Number one, on just how to do it, go about it, and how to effectively support and guide women and minorities in their career journeys.
One of the things that I learned through him that's important to me that I do now is creating a space where people feel comfortable sharing their experiences. And for me, active listening and knowing that we're not telling people what to do. We're actually building trust, understanding their unique perspectives, which may be different from our perspectives. I just finished mentoring a young lady from Africa through the Anita B. Org Foundation. And I can tell you that I don't think she knew how much she was mentoring me during the process. So I would recommend, offering guidance to meet their needs, knowing their situation and thinking about them, not what I would do if it was me. Sharing your own experience and the lessons that you've learned, it really helps them a lot. Finding space to advocate for them as much as you can. Even something as simple as a sign behind your office that says, I'm an ally. I mean, something as simple as that can help so much. Not being afraid of, providing constructive feedback and being honest about telling them where they are and what you would recommend. Connecting them to resources and networking. I can tell you, Ellie, when I got started in technology, I didn't really understand how powerful networking is. My goodness, that's the one thing that I teach all my mentees today. Understanding that connecting to other people and building those network communities from college, from high school, you'll be amazed at the people that you are still connected to in the workplace that you met 20 years before. And then the last one that I would say that I think is the most important one is educating yourself. Because I feel that for me, I want to mentor people from all over the world. And I want to understand where they're coming from. And so I focus on traveling is one of them. I love traveling and learning about different cultures, but you can get that through books or documentaries or even watching videos on YouTube. Continuously educate yourself on what's happening, how many women we have in tech, what women are going through, how you can help women deal with imposter syndrome, how you can help women deal with the patriarchy. I mean, there is so much going on. I feel that I'm always learning, and I'm always learning from other women and men. And so I would encourage just to make sure that you're learning and educating yourself along the way.
Thank you for sharing that, because you are going to be continuously learning. Like you say, your mentee is as much of a mentor to you as you are to them. It's a two-way street. So you're going to grow in so many ways. You mentioned anitabe.org as one of the routes that you take in terms of mentoring. Can you recommend any other communities that folks could look into if they want to get started on their journey?
A group that I'm very close with is Latinas in Tech here in the US, and they have opportunities for mentorship. There is another group called Out in Tech for the LGBTQ plus community. Their Slack channel is amazing. And they have a lot of resources for people who are looking for work as well. There's so many. Tecnolochicas is another one that I recommend. Taqueria is another one that I'm a member of. They also have an amazing Slack channel with a lot of resources. I think that if you start to network, you will start to come across all of these amazing places. And at work, we have ERG groups, and I'm a board member of the Women in Tech group, and we're creating spaces for people to also find mentors. So maybe your company can have a group like that as well.
I guess we both know Yanni Fernandez as well from Tecnolochicas.
Yes, I love her. This is the second time in a month that someone mentions her name, so I have to call her now.
Yeah, you have to. Jenny joined us in the first year of Equal Inspired on an episode, and I was really inspired by what she's doing.
She is such an amazing human being, and I love her drive to give back and to help others. She's one of the women that inspire me every day.
I love to hear that, and celebrating all of those communities, all of those role models who head them up, and of course, Yanni as well. And, for you, thinking about the legacy that you want to leave behind, how would you like to be remembered?
Oh, wow. That's a very deep question, and it makes me connect with my company, 5X Minority. The reasons I created that company was to make sure that I had a platform where I can share everything that I was learning. Growing up, I felt that women, especially women in tech, were not sharing enough about their struggle and the things that they were going through. And I wanted to be more transparent about my struggles. And so I probably want to be remembered as someone who used her platform, her knowledge and experiences to serve others. I think I'm a person of service. I think that's what we're all here in the end. And I want to create spaces that reflect the communities that we serve. And I think we're getting there, Ellie. I think all of us are doing a little bit so that our companies, our boards, and our leadership teams look more and reflect the people that we serve every day.
So powerful, and you're well on the road to that. Everything you do is truly empowering. And again, like, I admire you so much. You're a true role model for us here. So we can't thank you enough for joining the episode and for sharing more about your story and your journey. And I'd love just to leave a final piece of advice to anybody who's listening who comes from a minority background and they are hitting those brick walls, struggling. What advice can you share with them to keep going, to find that strength from within?
The first thing that I had to learn for myself was learning how to be comfortable, being uncomfortable, because I learned that the moment I felt uncomfortable, I wanted to remove myself. And then the moment I removed myself, nothing happened and I had no impact. So I had to learn to stay in the room when I was uncomfortable and just let the feeling be there. So what I would recommend is be uncomfortable. Make fear your BFF. I wrote an article about that a while ago because I have this new relationship with fear where I don't let it take over. I acknowledge it and it's my friend and we have conversations. But fear, I see it now as a messenger who is coming to tell me that what I'm about to do is really important and it really matters to me. And so when I see that I'm the only one in the room, I see it now as a responsibility for me to stay in the room. And so I would say stay in the room because we need you there.
I love it. Thank you so, so much. That is powerful stuff. And again, like, we are so grateful to have welcomed you on Equal Inspired.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for listening to today's episode, and we hope you're feeling inspired. If you are, please feel free to like, share, subscribe, and join us on our mission to create a diverse, inclusive, and equitable universe. This podcast is brought to you by Equal IT, a mission-driven business working to diversify tech teams through refined talent acquisition, complemented by diversity and inclusion consulting. As an Azure Heroes inclusive leader, we aim for teams to cultivate a strong sense of belonging and equity. Find us on Twitter and LinkedIn. We welcome your feedback, questions, and would love to hear from you. Join us next time on Equal Inspired.